I want to dive into your time with Ben Kenney of Incubus.
Hmm.
Incubus is one of my favorite bands. Before that, I have some kind words for you. It's been a while since I read some kind words. So,
Oh, I'm
uh,
starting to wilt over here, dude.
yeah,
Jeez.
so this is from Julian Taylor of Staggered Crossing, who's an
Oh,
amazing
nice.
singer-songwriter. I was a fan of Further Again back in the day with Staggered Crossing,
Nice.
and he's after a 20-year career, he got his first two Juno nominations last year to show you like going the distance and
Right.
keeping the vision, and then everyone else comes around in the end. So Julian says he's an absolute beast of a drummer and a beautiful soul. I love him as a musician and as a man, and I've always wanted to share the stage with him. So maybe someday you'll share the stage.
Hopefully, yeah. Hope so. He I was telling you this earlier, but when I moved to Toronto, you know, being a Black person that plays rock music or certainly heavier music is you don't see a lot of other brothers, doing it and doing it without any kind of like, sometimes you would see some guys playing in the rock world as a singer or as a rapper or as a drummer, but they would tend to bring over those flourishes from that R&B style, the more, let's say, Black music style into that rock field. And Julian, I always kind of gravitated more to guys who didn't do that, guys who were just like, no, this is what the music calls for, so this is what I'm playing. And Julian was the first person I ever saw. I was like, this guy's just stacked across him. Like he's road tested, and and the songs he's writing come from a very dedicated place, and like he's not, say, I don't know how to say this without saying it this way, so I'll just say it, but he's not cashing in being Black to play music he plays. It has nothing to do with the music he creates, and I've always thought of him as a real goat for that, as a real legend for that. And yeah, just such a performer. What a singer, what a player, like just a real great dude. I can't say enough good things about him. Yeah.
He's got a new album coming out, I believe, in October. So I'll keep an eye out for that one. Lots of great music on the way.
Yeah.
So we have a fan question sent in here about Ben Kenney. He says, this is from Aaron Collins. He says, all Canadian bands that you've played with, and then Incubus's bass player. How did that happen?
It is kind of a weird blip on the radar.
Mr. Worldwide with Incubus here.
So that's a funny story. I haven't told many people this, but it's a very, Joel, I'll tell you, man, like my life, a lot of things in my career have come across my plate because I've been ready for them, but a lot of things have just been luck. Like, just honestly, I've had a very lucky career, and that's not to say that like that's all it took, because you can be as lucky as you want, but if you can't capitalize on an opportunity when luck puts in front of your face, it doesn't mean anything. So, but with Ben, so check this out. So I was meeting a girl to go see a movie downtown at the, remember what, is it still there, the Scotiabank movie theater on Queen and or John and Richmond, right behind Much Music. So I was meeting a girl there, and it was super cold. She was late, and so I went into the HMV. There was an HMV on Queen, where just near there. There's an HMV music store near there, just to stay warm. And as it happened, the girl I was meeting was, I don't want to say she was a big Incubus fan. I want to say she was the Incubus fan. She was like like it was all she would talk about. It's all she played in her car. It was annoying how much she loved Incubus.
Did she go all the way back to like Fungus Among Us and
Oh yeah.
Science and
Oh, dude,
way before Morning View and
yes,
what is
yes.
it?
All the funk rap kind of stuff they used to deal with. Yeah, all of it. And she was in love with Brandon. The whole, knows everything. So I go into HMV to stay warm. I'm in there looking at CDs, and I look up, and there's Ben, Brandon, and Kilmore, the DJ. And they're just in HMV. And
Like
I'm
they're
like,
not signing autographs or anything?
no, like they're buying albums. Right?
You mean they're human like the rest of us?
Yeah. They use money as currency. Anyways, so I just was like, this is wild. So I went up to them. I said, hey, family music, crazy guy. What are you guys doing here? And they're like, oh, they were just rehearsed for an Intimate Interactive. I think they were doing one the following day. So they were in town early and they were rehearsing for it. And I'm like, this is wild. I'm like, I'm meeting someone who's like a super fan of yours. And it's so crazy that you're here and blah, blah. And so I talked to them for a bit. They were super polite and we talked for a bit. And eventually Ben and I started talking more. Kill and Brandon just kind of went off to their thing. And Ben and I started talking more, and he was like, so do you play? I'm like, yeah, I play drums. Like, oh, do you play for anyone? And I was like, actually, and I pulled out the Thornley CD. I was like, that's me. He's like, oh, he's like, is this Ian Thornley? I'm like, yeah. He's like, you play drums with Ian Thornley? And I was like, you know who Ian Thornley is? Like, what the hell? He's like, dude, he's like, that's one of my guitar heroes. He's like, I've looked up to him since that first album. He's like, I think he's incredible. Like, holy, he was a little geeked out. He's like, well, obviously I'm buying this, you know? so he was like, let me get your number. I was like, okay. So he took my number, and I didn't expect anything of it. And I left and then ended up going to meet the girl. And I was like, okay, Ashley, we're going to miss this movie, but here's what's going to happen. We're going to walk back to HMV. And I said, I need you, before I tell you the rest of this, I need you to stay calm and not blow my cool here with these people. But Incubus is in there. She's like, I'm like, Ashley? She's like, okay. I'm like, we're going to go back. I'm going to introduce you to them. And we're going to take 2 minutes at a time. And then we're gonna fuck up because I don't want to bother these people. And so she like vibrated back to the HMV, and we met them. But it was wild. It was just crazy to meet them like that. And so anyway, a year passed. I didn't hear from him again. I didn't expect to. A year passed, and then he said, and he reached out to me on MySpace. It was MySpace at the time, right?
Good old MySpace.
Good old MySpace. So I wish we had MySpace over Facebook, man. He reached out and said, hey, Sekou, I don't know if you remember me. My name is Ben Kenney. Yeah, I remember you, dude. I had your number in my phone, but I got into I dipped my motorbike and I ruined my phone with your number in it. And I've been looking for you, and I finally found you on here. Would you be interested in playing a show with me? I have my own project, my own label, and my own albums out. It's me on guitar, another guy on bass, and I would love for you to play drums on it. And I was like, okay, when's the show? He's like, I don't know. He's like, but we have to do a show together. He's like, I heard you on the album. He goes, I really want you to play drums for me for this thing. And at the time I had just left Thornley, and all my musical commitments were kind of not important. And I'd been getting calls from a musical director, a friend of mine who was in Thailand, who was overseas playing like in clubs every night, like 5-6 nights a week or something. And he said, hey, just come down here. It's like, you can make so much money. The weather's beautiful. The girls are beautiful. You don't have to spend the money. We put you up in like a 5-star hotel, your meal taken care of. So I was going to go down there for a year and just play jazz and R&B in like a bar in Thailand for in a hotel for a year. So I committed to that. And so I told Ben that. I was like, dude, I'd love to, but I'm leaving in August to do this thing. He's like, well, then we got to do a show before you leave. So he booked the show at the Knitting Factory in LA. He and Ashley, his bass player, flew down to Toronto, and I found us a place to rehearse. And we rehearsed for a couple of days, going through songs. And I think I did okay. It was all right. I don't think I was, blowing the roof off or anything. And then we went down to LA, did another rehearsal. And even that rehearsal was kind of timid, let's just say. And so before I hit the stage with them for the show, I just said to myself, like, dude, this is it. This is the biggest artist you've ever played with. Make an impression. Like, don't fuck this up. Like, you got this. You know these songs. Just do it. And I went on stage and I don't know what it was at the time. I just turned something on. And Ben, I just remember, all I remember from the show is that like 3 moments where Ben were like trying to look at me kind of like, yeah, like, where did you come from? And from there, he was like, this is it. He's like, this is the group. This is it. He's like, you go to Thailand, you do your thing. When you get back, we're going to start recording. We're going to start playing shows. And so almost a month, the day after I got back, he was like, yeah, we're touring. So we've done I don't play with him anymore, but we've done a few tours and tracked a few things together. Ben in his own right is a phenomenal drummer. Like, he's one of these guys who he's not going to sit behind a kid like make stuff up. He has to work stuff out. But so much of his music that I had to learn to play for the tours took me to a different level because I had to learn sticking that I just was not at all familiar with. But he wanted to be just that way. And it was really, really rewarding. So the 3 of us became really, really close. And we did a bunch of touring and stuff. They were always smaller shows because over the years, Incubus is kind of, their notoriety's kind of gone down. So the shows got smaller and smaller, but it was a lot of fun just to play with this guy that people knew from this thing. And I was very proud of the work we did together,
And that was the start of a 12-year relationship of
yeah, that's right.
Playing live with him. And what most people don't know is he was the guitarist for the Roots, and then he was the bass player for Incubus. And then on his solo stuff, he plays everything, including drums. Like, how talented is that dude? Produces it,
he's a phenomenal photographer, so he does all the artwork for it. Like, his knowledge of drums so far supersedes mine. It's not even funny. Like, yeah, he's something else, man. Really
how can one person get all the talent on all the instruments? I mean, what about the rest of us that just want to be good on one instrument,
Seriously, like he came up in Philly. So from what he's explained to me is, and it's not just for, there's a bunch of places like this in the States where you just grew up and you learn to play everything. You learn to play keys, you learn to play bass, you learn to play guitar and drums, and people would interchange based on what the need was for the gig at the time. So you would get calls for R&B gigs, or neo soul gigs at the time it was for him. And you would be playing drums one week and then hop off into a tour where you're playing bass for someone else. And again, these are, these cats, like, these are all guys who came up in the same time as the Roots and stuff and all that neo soul stuff. So you can't be mediocre. You have to be exceptional at it. So he took those skill sets and transferred them into the style music he was into, which he came up playing more punk and hardcore stuff, but just decided to be really good on guitar and really good on bass and singing. And he's one of those guys. It's really frustrating. Yeah.
It's super frustrating.